Thank you. Do I need louder? A little louder? Okay. Thank you. My story is entitled The Headless Woman. A headless woman lived in his house. Well, not lived exactly. To be with him, she'd left her life across the ocean. Exhilarating at first, the old land and new tongue wore her down. She scrubbed dishes and folded socks. He worked late. She tried again to get the dinner right. He stopped taking her calls at work. He worked even later. She fell asleep with the laptop burning into her thighs, startling awake only to find he'd gone to bed without her. The darkness here different. Familiar stars burned out. His name turned to dust in her throat. A coalescing human shape, a woman in a white nightgown. The hands of a marble Artemis reaching ahead of a body, neck cascading blood. Droplets pattered on the floor, hands groping in a convulsive movement, both balletic and grotesque. The headless woman passed in a cold wake of ectoplasm until the hands, arms, body dissolved against the wall. His charm eroded by eating too many of her failures, animosity welled in him. The inedible meat, one of the few goddamn things he asked her to do, leaking on the plate, as the headless woman sleepwalked through him, gushing spectral blood onto the floor. Her own dinner on a smashed plate between her feet. He snored while the woman reached across the bed, raining heavy globules of blood that soaked the bedclothes. The woman's icy substance broke like waves over her as she shivered. The hands grasped, always questing. It must have been a dream, he told her. She sat through the night waiting. She was meant to see this. Another failure, his frustration. He did so much for her. Did she not care for him like she used to? Why was she so difficult now? Even in the bright day, an afterimage of the headless woman floated just outside her sight. She knew there would be changes coming here. The hands creeping into her vision. He thought she'd agreed to this, at least until her language skills were better and she could get a job. Thick spatter of blood falling across his face as he spoke. She knew how much he loved her, right? The body's procession across the room. Was she even listening? He came home smelling of drink. The charisma that had drawn her to him blasted away to reveal callous entitlement. She spoke less, especially when he was in his fury. His work said he'd been fired when she called. Still, he came home after dark, bellicose. The money she'd hoped would get her back home disappeared, likely into his pocket, and then the pockets of bartenders and whores. He screamed her awake over a broken glass, the jagged edge in his hand. The smile that had once comforted her was now twisted and stained. The headless woman coming through the door threw him again. He lunged. Her hands rose reflexively. A cold embrace, like gloves of snow slipping on, as the headless woman's hands found hers. A sound like an animal afflicted. She felt a rush of heat down her chest. She reached, hands trying to clutch him, to fight, trying to scream no, no. She would not let this happen to her. And she got her feet under her, but her tongue would not move, and her lungs would not fill. And she forgot what her voice sounded like. And finally she knew what the headless woman had wanted her to know.